master category portion of the show each week is when we get to talk about the tokens we drew the week before. And if you were around last week, you knew we had Alicia Colon on the show, and she wasn't having the normal day-to-day deal. She wanted to totally mix up and mess up our regularly scheduled programming, and so we let her because she's our guest, and it's fun to do every now and again.
Before we get a crazy situation going on, we let her. Doesn't mean every guest that comes on is going to get the opportunity to just make categories.
Well, the asterisk and the caveat to that is we might say yes to a guest in the moment, but then choose to do whatever we want anyway because it's still our show and they're not there to tell us anything.
That's true.
We're adults.
So, we're adults. But be that as it may, we did have her change up our categories last week. And so we had amusement parks, music, and interior design. Those were the three categories that were mixed up, shuffled up, and dealt out. And Luke, what did you get?
I got amusement parks.
Okay, we'll talk about it.
All right, so here's the thing. I had not thought about amusement parks in a long time, and I don't think about them. We talk about Disney all the time, right? We've been to Disney in the course of the show. We've been to Disney probably over half a dozen times collectively, and I don't think that Disney World or Land is an amusement park. I think it's a theme park.
Yeah.
And I think there's a distinct difference. So I don't think about amusement parks that much. So amusement park would be something like Six Flags, Busch Gardens, Cedar Point, Kings Island, Knott's Berry Farm, stuff like that.
Disney World.
Nope. So when I got this category, I was like, oh man, I haven't been to Cedar Point. That's the closest to me up in Sandusky. It is, I don't know, like an hour and a half from where I live. And I used to go there all the time, and I haven't been there in a long time. So I started doing some research of just what are the new rides? What has changed? Because, it's been a minute, and they come out with a new ride every year. And so through that, I found two really cool rides.
Is that true? They come out with a new ride every year?
Cedar Point usually unveils a new ride every year, and Kings Island is similar.
Oh, that's right, because they shut down.
Yeah.
They shut down.
Yeah, in the winter.
They're seasonal parks.
They can't do every year or year-round because of winter, because Ohio. Yeah. So I found two cool rides. One is at Cedar Point, and one is at Knott's Berry Farm. The one at Knott's Berry Farm is called Hang Time, and what it is, it's just one big loop. So you're just in a loop. It looks like those ones that are at your like local like street fair or state fair or something.
Ships?
Yeah, but it's more like the Ring of Fire. Did you ever see that one where you're in and it just goes in circles?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so it's a lot like the Ring of Fire, except this is open air, and you're facing another two seats. So the front car is two people facing, and then behind them is two people, or four people facing each other, and so it's like six cars, and you're facing each other. And what happens is you go in loops, but there's times where you just stop upside down and you're just hanging.
Oh,
yeah, it looks crazy, and it's supposedly.
I'm watching a digital like fly through of it right now, like a ride through.
There's a couple videos on YouTube of people of the actual rides. And it looks crazy. It looks like, I don't know if I would like it. I just don't know if I would like sitting upside. I mean, you're really sitting upside down for, moments, maybe 5 seconds at the most. But still, you're just hanging upside down. That's a little disconcerting to think about.
See, I love that. Like, I'm a big roller coaster guy.
Sure, I love roller coasters too. I don't like the suspension, like the drops, like the demon drop or the Tower of Terror kind of. I don't like that stuff because I don't like suspension and then wait for something to happen. I don't like that.
I hate suspension too, but I love.
Are you saying this is the one? You said this is at Knott's Berry Farm, correct?
Knott's Berry Farm, yeah.
So, but they classify it as a dive coaster.
Okay, so I'm gonna get there.
Okay.
So
I just watched like the digital drive through of it, and it doesn't pause anywhere.
It does in the videos I've watched of the actual ride.
All right, I'm gonna go back and watch another one.
So they're classifying it as a continuous loop coaster, But there's controversy because a lot of the coaster world is saying it's a loop ride, yes, but it's not a roller coaster because it doesn't have a hill. There's no launch, which is there's nothing it's actually coasting on. And they're saying it is coasting. There's propulsion to get you up, and then it's coasting around. So that's how they're saying it is a coaster. But it's an interesting niche kind of like argument thing going on from what I've noticed, because I don't know that world at all, but it's like this is not a coaster, but to the layperson it's a type of roller coaster. So
it looks like it starts off because it starts off at a 90-degree angle. It like starts off going straight up, and that looks a lot like
nope,
that's what the video that I'm looking at it is.
Hang time is just a loop.
Bro, this is saying that hang time at Knott's Berry Farms. These are all the videos that all these say Knott's Berry Farms and hang time. And it goes up. It climbs up.
But it's just a continuous loop, right? Mm-mm. Yeah, you're not looking at the right thing then.
Okay. I don't know how I could be looking for something different.
I believe you.
But keep going.
How about you share with us what you're looking at?
Okay.
Luke?
Yeah,
I can do that.
You send to us what you're looking at because everything checked out and it didn't sound like it was what you guys were talking about.
Sure.
Or what you were talking about.
This is not at all what I see when I look up hang time Knott's Berry Farm.
Okay. Oh, it's at Six Flags. That's why.
Oh my gosh.
My bad. My bad.
Oh yeah, this is totally different.
This is called The Hangover.
Yes.
Okay,
At Six
hang
Flags.
time at Knott's Berry Farms is a thing.
Hangover.
Okay, yeah, this is different.
My bad. This is why it's not a real category. This is why it's not a real, because we're not masters of it.
This is real time fact checking, everybody.
Yeah,
at
it's
its
fine.
finest.
It's all
How
good.
many times does it spin you around?
I don't know.
How many times do you loop?
I don't know.
Upwards of 30 minutes.
No.
I'm just
What?
kidding.
I
Well, I
wanna
ask because if I remember right, the most inversions, like the current record is 14, which is held by a ride at Alton Towers. And if this is only a giant loop, it wouldn't be surprised me if you beat that, if it now beats that record.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Six
it would have
loops.
to.
Huh?
6 loops in 90 seconds.
You only do
succession.
6 loops?
Yep.
That sounds awful.
That sounds weak to me. That sounds like weak sauce. Go look at hang time.
Hang Time
Knott's
looks
Berry
great.
Farm. That one looks way better.
All right. So that's the one at Six Flags. The second ride, it's fine. It doesn't matter. The second ride is at Cedar Point, and it has broken almost every coaster record. It's called Steel Vengeance, and it is a hybrid, so that it's wood and metal construction. Here's the records that's broken: tallest hybrid coaster, fastest hybrid, steepest drop on a hybrid, longest drop on a hybrid, world's longest hybrid coaster, most inversions on a hybrid, fastest airtime hill on a hybrid, most airtime on a hybrid, most airtime on any roller coaster, world's first hyper hybrid roller coaster. It's crazy. It goes to 205 feet high. The first drop is 200 feet. The whole ride is 2.5 minutes long. It's a pretty long ride.
Yeah, it is. I'm watching the video for it right now. It gets eerily close to the ground.
Yes.
Also eerily close to the
sky.
street.
Oh, yeah.
No, well,
Yeah.
like when you're starting the ride off,
Yeah.
there's only a small fence between you and the highway next to
Yep.
it. That seems like that would be like a liability issue, you know?
If somebody
hopping
careens off the highway, sure.
Yeah.
But it looks amazing. I'm definitely going to try and hit it sometime this summer.
So this coaster opened this year. It opened this month, I should say,
Right.
back on my birthday, May 5th. And there was an accident where a car bumped into another car and 4 people had to be treated.
Sure.
It was at the loading area.
It broke records for most broken bodies.
Yes. This thing looks awesome.
It looks
does look awesome.
Insane. The drop is almost, I don't know if it's inversion, like an inverted drop. It's hard to tell from any of the pictures, and it doesn't say that, but it looks like it's like a 90-degree drop almost for the first hill.
Patrick, you would break the record for head decapitated.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I will never go on.
It goes through itself.
Yeah.
Like it goes into itself, and it looks like it's only just tall enough for the smallest human being possible to ride it.
Yeah.
I'd be afraid to ride it.
It looks awesome. I mean, it just looks incredible. It looks like it's going to be super scary and super fun. That first hill is always, to me, terrifying because I don't love heights. Like, I'm okay if I'm in a tall building, like looking out, if I know that everything around me is secure, but going up to the top of the coaster and you just, as you're cresting that hill, it's just, you slow down, by design. That is always terrifying to me. I hate it. And going up 205 feet, it really depends on how fast you go up as to how scared I am. Because sometimes you go like slow up the hill and it's more scary. Some hills are actually, you go pretty fast and you're like, okay, we're going up high, but it's moving along. So I'm not that worried about it. But I will definitely ride it, and I would definitely be scared at the top, I imagine. So
I want to ride that ride with Patrick in front. Well, he's in front. No, you were behind us on Space Mountain.
Oh gosh!
And I will forever remember.
I hated that for
the
Patrick.
back of our seat just being pounded, just boom, 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 boom,
No,
boom.
no,
You're like,
no,
get me
no,
off this
no.
ride, get me off of this ride, get me off of this. There were expletives. I'm leaving those out for the edit.
Feel bad for the children on that ride.
Oh my gosh!
Their parents were upset.
I thought there was a moment where I thought he's just gonna break it and fly out in the middle of the ride.
Just he'll get off at the top inside of this ride, and he'll be dead, and we'll never see him because it'll be dark.
It could not have been done soon enough. And the thing, well, I was going to comment about the ride itself. My eyes were shut. I have no idea because I was just like clenching in pain. So I couldn't see anything. I couldn't feel any movement because I was wedged so tightly into the car.
So you're saying if you would have broken it, you would have just been stuck inside anyway. So you would have.
There was no getting him out of it.
Yeah.
The worst feeling that I had in the pit, I had it in the pit of my stomach, was you had gotten down in and we were all waiting to see if you were going to fit because you're so massively tall, right? And you get in the back and the thing comes down and everyone's like, okay, he's down into it. And then we pulled forward just a little bit, but we weren't out of the gate
right.
yet. And you started to panic and you said, I need to get off this ride. I need to get off this ride. And no one heard you, and then they sent us on our way. And instantly I looked over at Luke, and we were just looking at each other like, "Oh no, our friend's gonna be dead.
Yeah.
Like this is it. This is the end."
It was the moment.
It could have derailed and flipped 10
can't have
times,
fun
and I
right
wouldn't
now.
have moved.
We can't have fun.
Yeah.
I did though. I did have fun. Is the thing. Like it was really good.
And here's the thing about closing your eyes: you didn't miss anything because it's all dark.
Yeah. Well, no, they had that ghost overload.
Yeah,
on
the ones
it.
for Halloween one. Or
It was, they were like it was haunted. Anyway,
So that's my amusement parks. Now the other thing is Patrick mentioned in our Discord. If you m1podcast.com/discord/family. Wait, what is it? /family?
all of those
Yeah.
/Discord /family /Slack. They all get
slash
you.
GeoCities.
Anyway, they get you to our Discord. Patrick mentioned it this week that he fell down the Defunctland hole, and so I started watching them, and it's super interesting. The first season seems like it's a lot of Disney. The second season is a lot of everything else. So they talk about. I watched the Back to the Future ride. I watched the Ghostbusters show. I watched Captain EO.
Oh, the Ghostbusters show.
Yeah, the Ghostbusters show at Universal Studios. I watched. Was
that
one
where
about
Twister was?
Twister took the place.
Twister's gone now.
Yeah, well, Twister took the place of Ghostbusters. Had they kept Ghostbusters, probably would have paid off for him a little bit more, and I think that's what they say in the video. There was, they've talked about everything. They talk about Adventure Park, which is another like smaller amusement park.
Action Park.
That's what it is, Action Park.
if y'all don't know the story about Action Park, there's a lot of people that have done little 10, 15-minute documentaries. Go watch one.
Isn't there a movie? Wasn't there, or it's coming out, a movie based on
Johnny
Action
Knoxville
Park?
is doing a movie based off Action Park. Yes.
Oh, it's a real place.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
I think a lot of people refer to it as Class Action Park.
Right.
I think like 8 or 10 people died there. But it's fascinating hearing about.
So this movie is an homage to it, or
It's kind of the story of how it started, loosely. I mean, it's also a comedy.
Which, given Johnny Knoxville's love of physical humor,
right.
You can imagine it's going to work very well together.
Right.
Yeah.
So I have another thing to take us to after Defunctland, but Patrick, do you want to mention anything about it?
I'll probably talk about it more in depth in the future. Yes, the first season is almost entirely Disney. Second season is a lot of Cedar Point, Kings Island, Universal, Knott's Berry, a lot of that type of stuff. I think that for me, wanting to understand more about the history of these parks, because we've talked to a lot of very knowledgeable people on the show, especially around Disney. It is a great way to understand the people, the decision makers, how things have evolved to where they are now. The thing that is fascinating to me is at that budget, that caliber, the people involved, how many bad decisions are made.
Sure.
It's fascinating. The times things are like, I think Euro Disney, which is now Disney Paris, hearing a lot about what it went into the launch of that park and the decisions that were made and the things that were missed. It is just endlessly interesting to me.
Sure.
So, but anyway, if you want to learn more about the history, especially of Disney and Universal, watch some of those. And then I would say my favorite single thing that I fell into was Nara Dreamland. So if you're unfamiliar with Nara Dreamland, go Google that, find some videos about the history of it. Again, just really, really cool stuff. So,
okay. So Defunctland it's okay. I mean, I don't necessarily love it, but it's fine. It's a whole, so here's the thing about it. It's a whole lot of information. Like I imagine producing one of those episodes takes months just because it's just getting so much of that information to put into a 10 to 7 to 12 minute episode, something like that.
Yeah.
Kudos to that guy. I fell into, so in the up next on YouTube or the suggested content, I then fell into homemade roller coasters. And there's tons of videos of people who have made their own roller coasters in their backyard. Some of them using their shed as the main hill, of going up over their shed and then going into a loop, and these are anything from, small kid, they have their kids on these things, like one little cart with a steering wheel and it looks like an airplane, going all up and down these hills and around these turns and stuff. And then the one with the loop I saw is this dude just strapped into a racing chair that he put a carriage harness on for the track tubes. And he just goes up over his shed and down and then into a one-man loop. He said he tested it before the track was finished, and it just went into the grass. He tested it because he tried with sandbags and it didn't give the right proof of concept. So he decided to try it himself. And
with himself.
It worked.
Yeah, it worked.
Oh my goodness.
But it's just amazing. Some of them have mechanisms to pull the carts up the hill. Some of them are just you pull it, you push it up with either with your hands and it's just high enough. It's for kids. It's high enough that you can push them up to the top of the hill. Another guy had a big pole that he was using to push the back of the cart up this hill. It's just amazing. They're mostly wood. Some of them are metal. Some of them are the tube are PVC pipe tube, all molded together. It's fascinating. The idea that somebody built a roller coaster in their backyard, because I think
It's more like fear-sinating.
It's amazing. Like if it works, that's great. Like I would imagine a kid growing up have a roller coaster in their backyard. That's just awesome. But what happens when your kid gets older and then it's just you have a roller coaster in your backyard? And
some of these are very dangerous.
Oh, I know. But some of them, I mean, it's just, I don't know. It's incredible. It's an incredible.
No. Here's the deal. All of them are very dangerous. None of them are regulated. I don't care who. I don't care. Nope, you couldn't get me. Oh, you could. You could pay me to ride one for sure. Yeah.
But yeah, that's a fun time on YouTube for an hour or so if you want to just look at homemade roller coasters. But that's my category. I think we will go to Andrew.
Yeah, that's a good idea. So just to give Patrick a little bit more time to rest up. But we're coming to you next, Patrick. So, like I said at the beginning of this episode, we're not at the beginning of the master category time. We all saw Solo, and Solo. Whether you like it or not, I think we're gonna do a quick little mini review of a rating. We're not gonna like go into it at all.
Yeah, no spoilers or anything.
A quick rating of the movie. Where would you put the movie on a scale of 1 to 10, guys? I think why?
I think I gave. Does anybody remember what I gave The Last Jedi? Was it like a 4 or a 5? It was something low.
I can't remember.
I was like a 9 or a 10. I gave it very high marks.
Right.
Yeah.
I gave it low marks, and I still hold
did.
by that. I will give Solo a 8.
An 8?
I loved it.
Patrick?
Oh man. By the way, I stand by my remarks on Last Jedi. That is still up to date.
Sure.
Is Solo? I have some big problems. Watching it was a lot of fun. I'm confident giving it a 7 or an 8. It really was enjoyable. I'm fine saying that it was an 8 watching it. I have some big problems that I want to talk about, and we'll talk about them later.
Okay. I've given it an 8. It was mine, a solid 8. It was a lot of fun in the moment. It gave me a lot of what I wanted. There was some stuff that I felt like was heavy-handed and was just a little bit convoluted, and for that, I would deduct it. But it was a very fun ride. A couple of the little spoilers or a couple of little surprises that happened in the movie were very fun, and I thought that was cool, and also open up the series to become what we know might be coming next in terms of some of these kind of one-shot movies. But for all of these movies to tie together, there was some stuff that happened in this one that kind of set the stage for it, which I'm really excited for. But anyway, one of the things that I loved about it is what I'm going to be talking about today. So the movie felt wholly different than maybe every other Star Wars movie in a lot of ways. Just the pacing of it and everything it just seemed a little bit different. It seemed a little bit more like Rogue One than the traditional trilogies of Star Wars that we've all kind of grown up with and know and love. But there was one point in the movie, and one of the biggest stars of the Star Wars franchise isn't even one of the characters, but it's the music, right? So John Williams has been the forerunner of composing all of the music in all of the Star Wars main trilogy arcs the entire time. He's done all of them, and so when you hear the that whole deal, like the ballad, it just does something to you.
Sure.
Like you get excited. You see, that's when you start seeing the credits scroll. That's when you start seeing all this stuff, and it just, there's something about that. If you grew up with Star Wars and you grew up loving Star Wars, that takes you back instantly to that moment. And for me, it gives me chills, makes me a little teary-eyed, makes me happy. It just takes me back there. Well, this movie was not done by John Williams. A guy named John Powell did the bulk of the the music composition for the movie. John Williams did work on Han Solo's song, and there was this moment. And here's where the whole thing is going to tie together, and we're going to have a quick discussion. The music was done by John Powell, and it was great. I have no issues or qualms with it whatsoever. But there was there is a slight disconnect for me on the music from this as opposed to Force Awakens, Empire Strikes Back, any of the even in the prequels, there was still this component that there was this thing that just felt right and felt like we were at home. And then there was this one moment in the movie where, and I'm not going to give anything away, but there's this one moment in the movie where Han and Chewie sit pilot, co-pilot, right? Captain, co-captain, in the Millennium Falcon. And when that hits, everything felt right. And the music seeps in and everything felt like this is Star Wars. This gave me chills. This is the right moment. And come to find out, John Williams is the one who did that score. Han Solo's song is John Williams. And so for me, it was this moment, and you see it at the end. Like I waited and watched it in the credits to see, and sure enough, John Powell did the bulk of the score, but John Williams did that one, where that made the movie feel like Star Wars to me. And so it made me start thinking about this track, and I had music. That was what I drew last week. How important music is to film. And so I wanted to know from you guys, what are some of the quintessential, like what are some movies that would not be what they are without the score that they have? I'll start things off for me anyway, and then you guys can take your pick.
Does it have to be a score or can it be a soundtrack?
I would say score. I mean, yeah, let's just stick to score because soundtrack is great too, but soundtrack is just it's a curation, not a creation. So I think that's maybe a little bit different. Yeah, let's stick to score for at least this conversation, recognizing that they both have their place. But for me, the one movie that would not be the same without the score is Steven Spielberg's Jurassic Park. Like, for me, that movie, when you hear the gates open up, and as soon as the gates open, you get the ba-da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na, with the strings and the deep kind of guttural sounds that come with that music. It encapsulates to me the idea of a theme park that is built for dinosaurs. Like, that song is that for me, and the movie would not be the same if it were a different score. Another one is Gremlins. The song that the Mogwai sing, that Gizmo sings. It's just like a little 8 to 12 note little composed song, but it lives throughout the whole movie, and you can hear it pick up and kind of swell in different points of the movie, and it takes me back. And there was one other one that we just watched, and I'm blanking on it right now. Maybe it'll come back to me when you guys are talking. What are some movies that without the soundtrack or without the score, they wouldn't be the same for you?
Go ahead. Doesn't matter.
Well, I've got a few.
I do too.
But my first one I think that comes to me is Dunkirk. Dunkirk, there's a couple things. So Dunkirk is messing with time throughout the film. So there's actually 3 separate stories that are... There's 3 separate stories that are happening, but they're happening over different time periods. One is taking place over... I want to say it's like a few hours. One is taking place over a week, and one is taking place over, I think, over like 2 months or a month or something like that. It's been a minute since I've seen the film. And so time plays very heavily into the film. And so one of the things you get is this constant ticking noise all the time throughout the film, kind of like just rooted. In addition, there's a technique that is used in the sound called a shepherd tone. And what it is it's this ascending tone that keeps repeating, but it gives you this sense of this like swell that just never ends. And it feels like it's always getting grander and grander and grander and grander. The reality is it's just this repetitious, again, this ascending tone that keeps repeating. But it works so very well in these big, there's some incredibly like stressful moments. Certainly there's combat moments. There's a lot of time that when nothing is, how do I say this? There's a lot of time where it's leading up to a big moment and you're waiting on it. And to have that constant building and rising under the action just does a lot for the already amazing cinematography. So I love Dunkirk. The other one that was recent that stands out to me that I was surprised you didn't say, Andrew, was Annihilation. I know that added a lot to that film.
Yeah.
Yeah, that added a lot to that film. And but that was more that it so well fit the. I mean, certainly it was dramatic in the right points, and it lifted the scenes at the right points. But just something about the tone and the shape and everything of the music just so well fit the world that they were set in within the Shimmer. Now, as a bonus, soundtrack. No soundtrack has ever elevated a movie more than the soundtrack for Warm Bodies, because without that soundtrack, that movie was garbage. And that soundtrack made it bearable. So good job, soundtrack to Warm Bodies. Anyway, Luke, go ahead.
Okay, so for mine, the first one that I thought of, this is, you can't have this movie without this. If you didn't have this score, it would be a totally different movie. Home Alone. That's one that it's
That's
perfect.
a good one. That's Danny Elfman.
No, it's not. That's
John Williams.
Yeah.
That's John Williams.
Super good. Another, mentionable nod, if you're talking Danny Elfman, is the Frightener soundtrack, which is really good. The movie's garbage, and the soundtrack doesn't save it. But the Frightener soundtrack is really fun. Danny Elfman music. The other two that came to mind when you asked that question initially were Blade Runner 2049. That was going to be Johan Johansson, but instead at the last minute, the director changed it to Hans Zimmer and Ben Wallfisch. And that score, it just feels perfect for the world that we're in. It works really well. It adds the right notes. I think it changed a lot. If I think of when that came out, it's not been that long, but the movies that have come since, even Annihilation, I think, plays off some of the ideas that came from that score as far as how they hit those dramatic notes at the right time. And then the other one that was maybe the predecessor to Blade Runner was Sicario, and that was Johan Johansson. And that film, that score just makes all of the tension and all of the apprehension of that movie come alive. Like, you actually really feel it. That score is super good. I think those would be my three. Annihilation was another one, but Patrick said it. So
I'll throw in one more real quick. Now, I would consider this a score, because this was all original music written for this feature. Now, this was actually for a documentary, but Brockerway did the music for Battered Bastards of Baseball, and that music did such a great job of embodying this idea of baseball nostalgia, from decades past. It just really did it in a great way. So that's another one I was just listening to. If you've watched the documentary Wild Wild Country, you've also heard Brockerway's music, because he also did a lot of the music for that as well. But Battered Bastards of Baseball, I think, is a really great example of, in this case, a documentary that was elevated because of the music.
So I remembered one of the other ones that I was thinking of, and for me that, and this isn't changed. I'm not asking you to change your answers. Those are all great answers. Neither one of you, I think, Luke, you said one, but the other of the 6 or 7 other ones that were mentioned were all newer movies, like newer genre movies. You said Home Alone, which brings back some of the nostalgia from when we were kids. Right. That's kind of what I was thinking more, but that's fine. That's just the track that my head was on. Like, when I hear that music, it does something to me. It takes me into the world. Mm-hmm. And now when I hear the music, it takes me back to that world. Sure. Like, that's kind of the idea. but Danny Elfman's Edward Scissorhands.
Oh, sure.
Like anything Danny Elfman, I feel like he brings with it this, like Edward Scissorhands, if you think about what that is, that movie would not feel as creepy but also approachable without Danny Elfman.
Sure.
You know what I mean? It's not epic by any stretch of the imagination. It's almost kind of contained, if that makes sense. It's it feels very isolated. At the same time, he uses off notes and really weird keys to help you feel eerie, but at the same time, it's inviting and welcoming. That's one that for me it takes me back, and the movie would not be the same without Danny Elfman's music. Here's the other one that is more modern that I thought of when you said yours, Patrick. Sondre Lirke did the entire soundtrack or the score. I guess you'd call it a score still because it's all created specifically for the movie. But for Dan in Real Life, that music absolutely helps make the movie. And here's why I think that's true in this case. He wrote and performed it on set while scenes were happening. He felt the tension. Yeah, he felt the tension in the room. He felt the acting, the action, the acting. He was listening to the dialogue. He read, he read the script, created this music around the relationships and the dialogue and the action that happens in the film, and it absolutely feels hand in glove a part of this film and wouldn't fit any other film, in my opinion. So if you've not watched Dan in Real Life, that's a great movie. The score or the soundtrack to that movie is absolutely beautiful and super amazing by Sondre Lirke. All right, that was mine. We do want to hear what yours are. So if you're in the Discord channel, hop in there and let us know what your favorite movie score is, or movie scores that take you back to a place, or movies that couldn't have existed the way that they do without their musical companions. So let us know what those things are. Patrick, I think you're taking us home.
That's right. So are either of you familiar with the idea of blue zones?
No.
Okay, let me back up. I have interior design this week. This is a BS category. It's stupid. I just want everybody to know that.
Thanks, Alicia.
But it does actually remind me of something that I was just talking about this past week, so I guess it works. So I will tie this back in, but let's first detour for a second. So the idea of a blue zone is a place in the world where people tend to live the longest, have the healthiest lives, and tend to be very happy. And in fact, in these zones, I think there's 5 that have been identified that people tend to live to be close to 100 years old. In fact, one of these areas holds the world record for the most, I think the word is centenarians, like people over 100. They had, I think, like 20 at one time or something like that.
Wow.
And they are cities in the country. So as far as which ones they are, that would have been great for me to have open. Okinawa is one. Sardinia is one. Loma Linda, which is a place in California. The Nicoya Peninsula in Costa Rica. And then there's a Greek island called Icaria. Those are the blue zones that were identified. Now, these first popped up. I want to say this was in 2006. There was an article written by a guy for National Geographic. And since then, people have kind of really, and he did a lot of research about it, but really diving into what makes these people live such long lives and things like that. And certainly, some of the big things, of course, has to do with diet. It has to do with you're always having physical activity, the amount of social relations you have. It turns out not just social, but religious ties, the amount of stress that you feel. There's all these things that go into it. I'll put a list in the show notes. You can look up like the blue zone list and you'll see like all these habits. But the big thing that I want to talk about in relation to interior design is how you can tie that into the way that you set up your house. Said in a weird way, it is very important that you make your life moderately inconvenient. Because you need to force yourself to have to move around. The problem is that we're very sedentary. I mean, I think of myself especially because my job is sitting at a computer. And then I go home, and when I do my hobby, I sit at a computer. And then I watch TV, and like you can imagine that there's not a lot of movement involved in that. And so the people that tend to have the healthiest lifestyles, a couple things. You don't have a TV in your bedroom. That's an easy one. But also, you eat your food in an actual dining room. That's important as well. So you don't actually take it to where you into a living area. The other thing is, this is going to sound funny, you sit on the floor and all if you use remotes for the TV, or no, I'll take this back. You don't use remotes. If you want to adjust the TV, you have to stand up and go to the TV and adjust it. Wait, hold on. I have some other ones. But the point is, I'll think of them just a second, or you'll just read them off the list.
Don't wear adult diapers.
Yeah,
actually go to the bathroom.
Actually go to the bathroom. But the point is, if you have your remotes with you and your food with you and you're not forced to move, then the other thing is don't do buffet style eating. And you only ever fix small plates. So if you want more food, you have to stand up. You have to go to get more food. You only get a small portion and then you come back. So it prevents you from doing.
Isn't that buffet style eating?
No. I'm sorry. I said buffet style, but what I meant was at the family style. That's what I meant. Family style. Okay. So you don't ever do family style. So no family style. You socialize away from the food, right? Mm-hmm. Again, you don't use any remotes. You don't put a TV in your bedroom. One of the other things on the list is getting a dog. That's actually a big thing on the list because again, it brings physical activity. Sure. Into you actually have to go outside a couple of times every day. It forces. So anyway, so the biggest idea is set up your environments where they promote constant movement, constant activity. It doesn't have to be intense. I shouldn't have to sprint somewhere to go do something. It doesn't have to be
nobody
intense
wants to
activity.
live intense anyway.
It just needs to be consistent, moderate activity. I think that's very interesting. And certainly as we're getting ready to move, because we're moving in we're a couple days away now.
You're getting a dog.
No, that costs more money because then I didn't pay for that with my lease. This is a rental. There won't be a dog somewhere.
And inevitably she listens. Your landlord listens to the show.
Yeah. Well, I know Mackenzie listens to the show, so no false hope.
You want a dog more than you want a child.
No, that's not true because a child will eventually grow out of it.
Yeah, and child is tax deductible.
And a child could maybe make me money one day. There's a lot of things a child could do that a dog just will never do for me. So it really gets me to thinking as I'm moving, how am I going to set up my house in such a way that it forces some of this in my new environment? So yes, Blue Zones, go check them out. See what are the activities that if you adopt will likely lead to greater longevity and health and who knows, maybe even happiness. That's not a guarantee, but maybe. Anything y'all want to add to that?
Well, I have a question then. So what are some of the things as you're moving and you're getting ready to reset up a house, you know what it looks like in there, you know the setup somewhat. Is there anything you're choosing to do, maybe not what would traditionally be done to help promote this inconvenient lifestyle?
I think a very easy one is my phone charger shouldn't be sitting beside my bed because then that leads to me using my phone and staying up and whatever. So, and then also same thing with a TV being in a bedroom. So I think removing the phone from the bedroom, removing TV from the bedroom, and then now the tougher thing is less for how I situate my house and it's more for just daily activities, but it's where do I find the break between I have work, I have a hobby, they both revolve around a computer. So how do I make them more active? That's the tougher nut to crack right now, and that has less to do with how I set up my house. So
yeah, I think that all makes a ton of sense. And honestly, given how much you hated this topic, I think you did a good job with it. It would have been. It's a bit of it weaves the two things that you like to do. It's new information and it's a public service announcement. So
there we go.
It's it has Patrick written all over it. I think that's going to be it for this episode, right?
Yeah.
So what you've learned, we'll just recap. Go see Solo, and don't build your own roller coaster, and throw away your TV remotes.
Or try your own roller coaster. Patrick will not ride it. Andrew will ride it. If you pay him, I will watch.
On YouTube from the comfort and safety of his own home.
Sedentarily.
Luke has what he calls black zones. It's just as he wants the least amount of movement, thinking, anything progressing his body in any way, shape, or form, or mind. That's where he wants to be.
I like it. I stand by it.
We're going to get out of this episode, though. You can find us on mofonepodcast.com, where you can find show notes and links to all the stuff that we just talked about in the links below. If you're watching this on YouTube, while you're on YouTube, follow us, subscribe to the channel, like this video, share this video. Go and watch a bunch of our other videos, like and share those as well. If you're listening on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify, any of those, subscribe, rate, and review. It is so simple. It helps us out so much. It doesn't cost you any money. If you want to support the show financially, you can go to patreon.com/mofonepodcast and become a patron, or you can go to shop.mofonepodcast.com and get some cool swag to go along with your support. And it's a good time. It helps us out so much. We love what we're doing. We love to continue to expand it and grow it and do more with it, and it's honestly because of the support of you guys that we're able to do that. So please go do that. It's very, very helpful. What else are we missing? Oh, we are now on Timed Edition. So we are one of the contributors over at Timed Edition. If you have not visited that site yet, go do it. There are just such incredibly talented creatives and professionals putting out content there each and every day. It's a really, really cool site. Go check out timededition.com and see what you're missing now. I think for now, we're going to get out of this episode, though. I'm Andrew.
I'm Patrick.
And I'm Luke.
Peace out.
Help me.
Bye. Hold on your butts.